Welcome to CEO Money. I'm Michael Yorba. Thanks for joining with us. I have Daphne Barak. She's an author. She has a new book out, To Plea or Not to Plea, and it is bound to be a bestseller. It's got very, very intense current content involved in it. Daphne, welcome to the show. First of all, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Michael, for having me. And I know my husband Bill has been twice on your show, and he thinks so highly of you.
I appreciate that. I appreciate it a lot. You have a very rich history in television broadcast and interviewing people from around the world. Give our audience a flavor for your background, and then I want to dive right into your book.
I've been probably they say I'm the most syndicated interviewer around the world. I have a model that I didn't have a master plan, but apparently it proved to be very unique, that I'm syndicating the best a dozen markets since I was 20. And that means I reach the 500 million viewers of loyal readers and viewers, but not through social media or stuff like that, but through the #1 television or paper in each country in their own languages. As you know, Turkish, Italian, Pakistanis, they don't necessarily, Arabs, they don't necessarily speak English or read in English, so they have their own outlets. And I became sort of like, quote unquote, our Daphne. It's been a while, going on for more than 2 decades. I'm a television executive producer. Everybody probably have seen or have heard about many of my interviews, but some like Michael Jackson of his parents, produced by me in partnership with Liz Murdoch, daughter of Rupert Murdoch, the owner of Fox. Same thing with Liza Minnelli and her sister, uniting them, Eric Clapton. And then in the last several years, I also agreed to pen some books. The first one was Saving Amy, which became world famous, became sort of a cult. It's a sort of a diary of addiction or a dysfunctional family which led to addictions. And it's basically about my 6 months filming with Amy Winehouse and her family. The book was based on a documentary which was everywhere, from 60 Minutes Australia, like 50 countries, and a film inspired by its message that there was probably something even worse that we ever acknowledge in this family, won an Oscar. So I'm very happy to the people who did it.
Thank you for that. Now, To Plea or Not to Plea, this reveals why Rick Gates pleaded guilty in the Mueller investigation and the repercussions of this ordeal. Bring that out for us.
So Rick Gates actually was not a household name, although he was very powerful. You know, Michael, I mean, he was a guy that you would call to get the VIP dinner invites for the inauguration or the inauguration events. Or if you're not as fortunate as I am, or we've been a long time friend of Trump, you would call, would you pass my resume to the transition team? But Rick always kept himself in the shadow. He was a deputy campaign manager. After Paul Manafort was fired, he was still asked by Jared Kushner to stay. And then he became the deputy chairman of the inauguration, number 2 to Tom Bark, who's a mutual friend of Donald Trump and myself. Wonderful guy. And so Rick always kept in the shadow. What you saw in CBS and a bit extra, you'll see it on Fox and everything a bit more, is the first television interviews with Rick, because he has never given an interview. And one day Rick Gates found his life interrupted, like Mike Flynn, like Paul Manafort. The reason I chose Rick Gates was because it was a shock for all of us. Michael Eric Trump introduced Rick Gates and I one day when he asked Bill and I to become delegates to the convention. I was one of the 10 delegates at large. Bill was a delegate for our vacation home district. And it was very important for them because if you remember, Ted Cruz at that point did not like and did not accept the result that Donald Trump nailed the majority needed for becoming to become the GOP, the RNC GOP nominee. So Ted Cruz was trying reportedly to buy delegates for lunch, for hotel accommodation, whatever. Donald Trump had to rely on people like Bill and myself that we would not be able, we would not be bought for lunch or anything. So Eric sent me an email, said, Daphne, meet Rick Gates. He's in charge of the delegates. We already talked before, so I said I would be happy to be your delegate. So would Bill. So would you meet Rick Gates? He's in charge of the delegates. Rick, meet Daphne. She's been a long time a friend of the family. I told Rick about the special friendship. That's it. But there was nothing like a. So sorry.
Bless you.
Sorry. There was not. That shows that I'm telling you the truth. But there was nothing. We didn't develop a friendship. It was like Daphne meet Rick. I think it changed. We probably talked a few times on the phone, and I think it changed when just a few weeks before the inauguration, one of the Trumps asked me if I would like to go and check the Trump DC hotel. As you recall, Michael, it was a new hotel by then. And they wanted to check it out because, of course, the family would have stayed there, many billionaires, big donors, including Bill and myself. So I took my brother and my husband, and we went there for the New Year's Eve. And Mikhail, the general manager of the hotel, is very close to Donald Trump, received us and treated the whole experience of the New Year's Eve like a dress rehearsal for the inauguration. So it's like a 5-course meal. And they tried the balloon. They tried it was 2017 balloons, because it's such a high ceiling in this hotel. It was lost in a crowd. They understood we need to double or triple Ryan Priebus. Then chief of staff to be was there, others. When I went down like 2, 3 a.m. in the morning to my suite, I heard Daphne. So all the teams that was working on the inauguration knew me. We were friends. And suddenly one person looked at me and said, "Oh, we talked so many times on the phone. My name is Rick Gates." That's it. But the next few weeks during the inauguration, we stayed with the family and friends. And, Tom Barak was working with the inauguration team there. We went to the gym together. We went to coffee together. We bumped into each other. We became better friends. And Rick was very liked. Unlike Paul Manafort, his former patron, was very flashy and, $10,000 jacket and everything. And by the way, I'm sure he's a great guy, but Rick had this unique ability not to create enemies. He was like in the shadow. He was likable. He was not stealing any limelight. And so he became sort of part of us, many of the Trump friends in orbit. And at that point, he was tapped to be one of the 4 people in charge of the America First Park, which was Nick Ayers, and then became the chief of staff of Mike Pence, and was tapped to be the chief of staff of Donald Trump. It didn't happen. Rick Gates, Brett Pascal, who is a friend of ours, and he's right now the chief of Donald Trump campaign.
Tell me, how did Rick get the pressure from the FBI to go from this lofty position that he had with the Trump administration, and then have to go into and make a choice of cooperation versus dedication. There is some insights in there that you might be able to bring out for us.
And Michael, you are so wise to bring it up. And the one word you chose, which does not apply, and it's so key, is the choice. When I went into this book and into this filming, which, by the way, Donald Trump applauded me when I told him. He said, "Oh my God, how are you doing it? Right? It's even bigger than your Michael Jackson," because it was quite impossible to do. But when I went into it, I was under the impression that um, to plea or not to please, that means that you have to choose between very two bad choices, like choosing between AIDS and cancer. Each one is such a bad choice. What I found out filming with him and talking to him, that no, 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 neither he nor Mike Flynn, none of them had any choice. When the government is going after you, you lose all your choices. You lose all your rights. So basically, if you decide to fight, which, by the way, of course, it was Rick's initial response. Let me fight for my dignity. Let me fight for my truth. As Paul Manafort did, people forget Paul Manafort then pled. And I'm sure Mike Flynn wanted the same. No, 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 because then they came and double and triple the charges, and then it cost so many millions. The moment that Rick Gates broke was the moment that after, I call the first name of the book, which is becoming a film, which you'll hear an announcement quite soon, was 118 days, because it's the 118 days window that Rick Gates was thinking to plea or not to plea. And it was a bloody difficult decision which would affect the life of his family, his children for years to come. You cannot walk back. And what I am thinking is the day that he really broke down was a day that they suddenly doubled the charges on him and Manafort, because Manafort decided to fight it, and he also put pressure on Gates directly and indirectly not to plea. And I understand Manafort, of course, because he didn't want Gates to flip against him. But at that point, Rick understood that he could not afford it financially. Who does?
Right.
Michael, don't forget one thing, last thing. Michael Caputo, who had nothing to do with this, he was just a witness. He went publicly and he said, I lost my house. I was just a witness, just because of the legal bills. How can anybody afford it?
I get the point. No, absolutely. I fully understand that. Now, Roger Stone trial is now started, and Rick Gates is expected to testify. Did you have any conversation with Rick about what's going to happen through the Roger Stone trial and how he would participate in that?
Well, you're so sweet, Michael. You're making it as if he had a choice. If Rick Gates had a choice, he wouldn't participate in this trial. To begin with, he thought people don't understand that the plea deal is not something that is explained to you fully, and even if it is, you don't comprehend it. It's a very one-sided deal that only the prosecutors decide, when they can walk back, and they can walk back anytime when you decide you lied or didn't comply. Look what they're doing with Mike Flynn. Look what they did with Paul Manafort. And secondly, there is no timeline. Every deal in life, Michael, we have a timeline, let alone bad news. Let's say if I tell you, Michael, go to the doctor tomorrow, and the doctor tells you, Michael, you need a surgery. Your first question will be, wow, when can I go back to work? What is my recovery time? 2 months, 3 months, so you have something to look forward, let alone jail. And this deal, when we decided about the date for the book between America and Australia and televisions in both countries, we thought by now Rick and Flynn, everybody would be long time sentence. No way, because it's always like if they can decide that Rick was supposed to testify only at the Paul Manafort trial, then another trial, then this one, he really didn't want to, and basically he got the bad news that his sentencing, which is supposed to be in 2-3 weeks, is sort of quote unquote conditioned to him delivering the goods. And the third trial by now is Roger Stone. Did he want to do that? No. Why would he want to do that? I mean, it's a very good question. It's the plea that I don't wish anybody should take. But did Flynn or Gates had any choice? I'm not so sure.
Good, well point. Our limited time is up for now. I want to thank you for being a guest on the show, and I look forward to getting your book and being able to read it.
You didn't get it?
Not yet, but I will.
Oh my God, I'm going to tell my publisher immediately to send it to you. Okay.
Thank you so
Shame
much.
on them. Shame on them. And by the way, it's a very different book of what you imagine. It's not the usual cheerleading. Trump has been a long time friend of ours. There's a lot of points there about things that should have not have done happening with the Mueller report and stuff, investigation. But they're also very beautiful and funny and enlightening and even romantic moments to be told for the first time.
I'm looking forward to it. Thank you, Daph.
Thank you so much, Michael.
You're welcome. All right, you've been watching CEO Money with Michael Yorba. Thanks for joining with us. Don't forget to download our new app on iOS and Android. We'll talk to you soon.